The gringos panicked over what happened in the Caribbean. A mysterious Russian plane surprised the world by flying over Venezuelan and Cuban skies. What seemed like a simple flight over the Caribbean waters turned into a global alarm when an IL-96-400 aircraft from the Russian Federation Security Service soared through Cuban and Venezuelan airspace. This plane, known for its capability to serve as a mobile command post, left the Trump administration scratching their heads, questioning the Kremlin's intentions. A Russian plane stunned Trump, reports say. It roamed over Cuban and Venezuelan skies. The recent appearance of a Russian aircraft over the Caribbean waters has sparked a wave of reactions and tensions in Washington. In an unexpected turn, the IL-96-400, registration 9614, from the Federal Security Service of the Russian Federation, the modern shadow of the feared Soviet KGB, flew over Cuba and Venezuela. The event has left military analysts and U.S. politicians stunned, as they cannot help but draw parallels with the tense Cold War that divided the world into opposing blocs for more than 40 years. Although the exact details of the IL-90SXS mission remain a mystery, the presence of this aircraft, one of the most advanced in the Russian fleet, has raised concerns. Rumors suggest that the plane, known for its ability to function as an airborne command center, was involved in high-level security activities or even in bilateral cooperation maneuvers between Russia and the governments of Venezuela and Cuba, two of the Kremlin's traditional allies in Latin America. This type of aircraft, designed in the early 1990s by the Ilyushin Design Bureau, has a history that evokes memories of past international tensions. The IL-96-400 is equipped with sophisticated communication and control systems, allowing it to operate in strategic missions and serve as a command center during international deployments. Militarily, this capability is invaluable, as it provides the flexibility to coordinate security and defense operations in strategically important areas without needing to return to Russia. Since its limited production in Voronezh, this aircraft has been primarily used for government flights, but its deployment in Latin America sends a clear signal of Russia's intentions in the region. The immediate question arises, why would Russia decide to send such an aircraft to Cuba and Venezuela? In the context of current geopolitics, the presence of an FSB aircraft in these skies is no mere accident. The region has historically been fertile ground for ideological tensions and foreign interventions, a legacy of the Cold War when the Caribbean island became the epicenter of one of the most dangerous crises in contemporary history, the Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962. Although the scenario has changed, tensions remain latent, and Russia's return to this region is not a minor detail. In Caracas, the situation is no less complex. The government of Nicolas Maduro, backed by Moscow, has been a key piece in Russia's efforts to consolidate its influence in Latin America. Since the rise to power of Hugo Chavez and later Maduro, Venezuela has been a strategic ally of Russia in the region, especially regarding arms supply and intelligence cooperation. The Venezuelan government has allowed Russia to establish various operational bases on its territory, including military installations that support Russian interests on the continent. The presence of an FSB aircraft, known for its role in supervision and command in crisis situations, could signal deeper collaboration between both countries in security and defense matters. The exact movements of the IL-96 during its stay in the region remain unclear. However, Russia's use of such aircraft is nothing new. Since the fall of the Soviet Union, Russia has regularly deployed its air and naval forces in Latin America, although not always with the same visibility as this time. The IL-96 flight could be interpreted as a reminder to the United States that Russia remains a key player in global politics and that its presence in the Western Hemisphere should not be underestimated. In Washington, however, the perception has been one of alarm. The Trump administration has expressed concern over the growing ties between Russia and Latin American countries. While it is true that Russia's interests in the region are not as extensive as those of the United States, increasing cooperation in sectors such as energy, defense, and mining, combined with maneuvers like the IL-90SXS mission, suggests that Russia is actively seeking to expand its influence in this part of the world. This episode also brings to mind the use of command aircraft in war scenarios. The IL-96-400, equipped with advanced communication systems, has the capability to coordinate combat operations from the air, making it a strategic tool in any conflict setting. The possibility that Russia might be establishing a command center in the heart of the Caribbean is not mere speculation. If tensions between the United States and Russia were to escalate again, as they did during the missile crisis, the deployment of such aircraft could play a crucial role in overseeing any potential conflict in the region. The reality is that the movement of this aircraft raises the question of whether the Cold War is about to be revived in Latin America. While many believe the world has moved past the rigid divisions of the 20th century, this incident highlights that, despite technological and diplomatic advancements, the old tensions between major powers remain alive. Russia's involvement in the skies over Cuba and Venezuela is just one manifestation of this underlying dynamic, a sign that the rivalry between superpowers continues, now with new actors and new scenarios. Meanwhile, the international community watches closely, trying to understand whether this marks the beginning of a new era of confrontation or just a brief echo of history, where the past still carries weight. The implications of this Russian presence over Latin America are vast. In military circles, experts cannot ignore the strong symbolism of an FSB aircraft, the same agency historically in charge of clandestine operations and political control under the Soviet regime, flying over nations with which Russia has maintained close alliances. It is not just a message to the United States, but also an assertion by Russia that it still has much to say in shaping the future of the continent. The cooperation between Cuba, Venezuela, and Russia could be deepening, not only in economic terms, but also in the military sphere. The presence of such an advanced aircraft on such a mysterious mission seems to be a clear demonstration that power dynamics in Latin America could be shifting. In a context of growing political and economic instability in the region, Russia's return could mark the prelude to a new era of Russian influence in the Western Hemisphere, another chapter in the geopolitical struggle for global supremacy. The echo of the Cold War still resonates, and as the world adapts to new realities, old tensions appear far from disappearing. Secret operations, geopolitical alliances, and competition for control of key territories remain in play. Now, just as in the darkest days of history, the presence of a Russian aircraft over Cuba and Venezuela may be the spark that reignites an old confrontation, or perhaps just a warning of what is yet to come. The presence of a sophisticated Russian aircraft over Cuban and Venezuelan airspace has reignited Cold War-era tensions, raising concerns in Washington about Moscow's growing influence in Latin America. While the exact purpose of the flight remains unknown, its implications are clear. Russia is making strategic moves in a region historically dominated by U.S. interests. As geopolitical power struggles continue to evolve, this incident serves as a stark reminder that the battle for influence in the Western Hemisphere is far from over. Is this the beginning of a new Cold War? Stay informed on the latest geopolitical developments. Subscribe now and turn on notifications to never miss an update on the world's most critical power struggles.